What like apps or processes or workflows do you think is going to be irrelevant in the next 6 to 12 months?
Welcome to Fire Talks by Tech Wing Bites. I'm Clint. I've built software, led teams, and now a founder, helping builders who are ready to make the leap, but can't quite see the path yet. Every episode is one conversation closer to clarity on ownership, execution, and momentum.
Hey, I'm Tony Brooms, CEO, co-founder, Hola Billy. I've been doing some things in a lot of different spaces. So, it's going to be fun just kind of talking about some more AI stuff. So,
Wonderful. Thank you. Cory?
So I am Corrales Cachola. Corrales is I have two names. Cory is I've switched it different times so people are confused, but Corrales is my name, but Cory is what I go by. And so I'm a strategic advisor for founders, especially consultants and small organizations like training organizations. So banking, small banks are one of my niches, specifically training bank trainers in the education space for banks. So helping them navigate the AI space. But what I'm focused on and really fascinated with is this idea of I call it our human software, and I use my journalism skills to extract your source code from your head and align that with AI systems, and to basically connect this into a operating system, a cognitive operating system. So that's kind of what.
All right, thank you. I want to make sure I say this right. Corrales.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, David.
Yeah, so my name is David Seaholm, founder of Outdoor Guides Inc. and former software executive or technology executive for the last 15 years or so. That's basically my background. So,
thank you, David. So I'll kick it off in this in agentic age where we're constantly building. We have AI agents building for us, not only for the sending but also receiving. I think it's important to understand as builders, like, what are we building for? First, we got to get the project done, but when it's done and it's beautiful, who is actually going to use it? With Google just releasing their command line interface for Google Workspace, I just see more and more companies taking on that objective. And of course, like we talked about the last time, if AI is doing everything, what are we what are we building for? What are we gonna do anymore? So I just want to open up the conversation with that and kind of see what you guys think about. Like, so the big question is, what are we building for? Are we building for humans now, user interface, or is it just all going to be for the AI?
let me start because I already got a kind of idea around this.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about designing AI or doing that for command line, that's only because it's closer to the machine code, right? We're still designing for humans. At the end of the day, we're still going to be, and what those interfaces are going to look like are going to be different for sure. I mean, obviously, we're talking about getting into potentially AR space, VR space, but at the end of the day, it's still at the service of humans. So yes, the CLI for agents will be a thing just because it's going to be one less layer to have to deal with for the agent. But almost every product we're talking about here, still at the end, is going to be for a person.
yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Tony. So the end consumer is always going to be a person, right? I think that to Clint's point, though, how the consumer or the person is consuming that information is going to change slightly. And I think that more the most important piece of this is, as a business owner, how do you want it consumed, right? Like, what are the rules of interaction for agents with your service? And that's what we have the opportunity to build.
So I approach this from a problem-focused standpoint rather than. I think it's actually a very difficult question to ask. Is it for humans or who are we building for? Because that gets into just a lot of philosophical debates, frankly. And I find that the binary choice between human or machine, all it does is it gets into very toxic conversations very quickly, because the pro AI people are always like, like us will argue about the efficiencies and automations and all the great things AI can do. And then the pro humans will argue that that's, because the complication, what you quickly get into is agentic gets into agents doing the work. So if you say, well, it's for the human, right? Well, the agents, you're actually appealing more to agents more and more. So are you really building for humans, or are you building for agents? At the very end, I guess you could say, well, we're building for humans at the end of the day, but this becomes very complicated. And so I try to sidestep that whole thing and reframe it by saying, we're here to solve problems, period. And that means I'm talking big problem. I'm talking climate change problems. I'm talking economic level narratives. That's where we have to go with this, because it's the only way that you can justify using an augmented AI human connection in my book, because those problems are so complex. We need AI pattern matching and AI machine learning and all that stuff to basically augment with the human. Basically, whatever problem cannot be solved by either one of them alone is what I like to frame it, because that makes a lot more sense, and it sidesteps a lot of this, like, are you building for humans or machines? I don't really care, because you can see Amazon is, and a lot of companies are going more automation of machine. So they're not building for humans. There's no human in the loop even. So it's not even correct. So it is more correct to say parts of it are we want all machines at this piece. And then at this piece, we want some human in the loop. That's a system to me. So I look at more as systematic, I guess.
So you talking about like the different pieces. So some pieces could be fully autonomous, fully automated, but then some pieces. Well, for those pieces that has a human in the middle. For example, someone says, "Hey, I've built an app," right? Well, that app is more likely for human, because right, you could slide, you could do right. The human is in that loop, right? And a lot of the apps I see people building these days, they're building for a human, and then I turn around and then Claude Code says, "Hey, I can do that."
Exactly. You're building for the agent now. Actually, that's where it gets complicated.
I think, yeah, I think that in theory, all of that is correct. That the agent can do the things, or the model can do the things. But in reality, that is not the case. Like, you have to have a human in the loop. And I think the best way that I've heard this described is that large language models, by the way, I have a very big problem calling this stuff AI. It's just not. Just throw that out there, because we've never met each other before, Carlos, but that's kind of one of my sticks there.
That's fair.
Yeah, so in the way that this stuff is built, and the limitations that we have with power, that we have with memory, manufacturing, etc., this is not a problem that we're going to get to where it is good enough to not have a human in the loop for probably the better part of a decade, unless there is some massive breakthrough, which there isn't even a concept of how to make that breakthrough today. So never mind like actually putting it into production. So there's going to be a human in the loop for a very long period of time, and that human in the loop is force multiplied. And so you're going to see if that person is really good at what they do, then you're going to see a lot of productivity and a lot of good out of it. If that person is bad at what they do, you're going to see a whole lot of slop pushed out through the large language model. And it's going to be that way. So, I mean, I think that that's something that people need to come to terms with. It's not about, at this point in time, it is not about getting rid of people. It is about how do we make you more efficient at what you do, right? And there's something that you can do that you're really good at. Let's focus on that and get you into a large language model and a system, as you described it, that works for you.
Right. So we can agree then UI ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, no. I mean, even when we're talking about a system is only designed for whoever gains the benefit of it, right? And at the end of the day, most systems are benefiting some sort of humans along the line. Right?
Taking it back to what Cory was saying then, we have a big system. Some things is autonomous. It doesn't need, humans, right? And then other things do. I see it this way, but I'm posing the questions. Do we see less and less user interfaces with settings and slides and stuff? And do we see now, because we have things like our Claude, which the interface, and you can say, go fix my calendar, go do this. Before we would have to click the settings box, slide, blah blah blah. So then is it less? Do you see? I feel this way, that it's less UIs, like less UI functionality, and more function that's just hidden for the human.
I think it depends on the outcome, because it's always going to be about a specific outcome. Like yes and no. Like you might have that if there's a lot of human in the loop stuff, but in other systems, like the full supply chain is not going to be reliant on that UI. But so it really depends on the outcome that you're after. And so if your end outcome requires that, sure, like you will have a lot of that human interface stuff. But if it's like, oh, wait a minute, the system is, the agents don't really care about all that shit,
right,
and they can just bypass all that. We don't have to waste our time building UIs for humans at this point in the segment, in the supply chain. Maybe at the end point, the final, the final mile, the last mile. Yeah, we need that special UI. Let's get our human centered designers in here. Yeah, but over here, yeah, we don't need that, right? So it's all system design thinking in my mind, and outcome driven.
Well, yeah, I can see that. I'm gonna walk through a specific scenario with you here in a second about the way people consume information, but then I want to challenge Tony to address his product that he builds in the same fashion. So I was having a conversation with somebody that I work with regularly about their day-to-day job, and they were describing, they're a mid-level programming manager or engineering manager over a bunch of software developers, and a big part of their job is taking information that is available inside of one system, putting it into an Excel spreadsheet to present to the next level up. Okay. Then that next level goes and presents, and they have a very specific way that they want it done, color coding and all sorts of other fun things that if it's not perfect, then they come back to them and tell them to fix it. Then it goes to the next level up, and that person wants to consume it inside of a PowerPoint slide set. So they get to they get, after it's approved, they get to transfer all of their work and formatting and everything else over to another system. Because people have very specific ways that they want to consume their information, right? That's what they're used to and how they want to consume it. I don't think that that's going to go away. I think that we're now seeing another way that people like to consume some of their information sometimes, and that might be through interaction with a large language model. They might want Claude or ChatGPT or whatever to go out and fetch that information for them, present them with their options, and then move forward that way. The challenge for us, or at least for myself and Tony, is how do we control that information space, right? The user experience side of that, because we need that information presented to the end user in a very specific way so that they understand their options appropriately, instead of trying to rely on the large language model to present it appropriately. And I think that's where we start to see we're building for the large language models and not necessarily for just the user interface at this point in time. But it's the same problem. It's a user experience problem instead of just a user interface problem.
So I want to ask a question on your wording, right? Because when I said in an interface, I'm thinking interactions. What you just described to me sounds more of dashboard, presentation layer.
Yes, so to some extent, right? But like, so use my company as an example, right? I provide people with the opportunity to go out and book outdoor guides of various different fishing, whatever.
Right.
I need for them to be able to make the correct decision for themselves. I need certain information presented in a certain way and boxed off, because I have gone out and done the research to help the things that people want to know or need to know to be able to appropriately make that right decision for themselves. That needs to be presented to the large language model in a way that it says, okay, this is the information I'm going to present to the people, and how they should consume it and how they should be able to think about making their decision. I might know as a large language model, because I have information about the way this person operates, that I can adjust some of that, but it needs to be within bounds of what I'm defining, right? And that's part of what you're able to do through I'm forgetting the term right now. We constantly talk about them, Clint. MCP servers, right? Yeah. So you can provide that MCP that kind of gives that context space for being able to define what that looks like for the end user and for the large language model to present to people. So I said I wanted to get Tony's perspective on that, because he has a product that kind of has the same challenges.
Yes. So with Authability, it's especially the invoicing estimate part of Authability.
A quick introduction of the
app.
Give a quick introduction of the app.
Oh yeah. So Authability, it's a way for people to be able to do invoicing estimates and any kind of payment requests. Do it remotely, and also be able to do it through text messaging and just any online kind of like vertical path, right? So when we're talking about kind of like creating the guardrails around how the LLM will essentially give you back your input and output, yes, it's a lot of heavy context. I have to put in a lot of context around it. And also, I'm starting to look into doing some evals, just so that when I'm testing the LLM, that it will give me output in a fashion that I'm expecting it to. It's rough going, just because LLMs are designed to be, especially when you have the temperature set to a way something, and the p-values and stuff, we set it so that it needs to be able to interpret a lot of different inputs and still give you out a relatively structured output. So I've been utilizing a lot of different guardrails not only within the LLM, but guardrails within the code as well. So that when someone's speaking to it, like, first thing I do is I redact like personal information, like before it even gets to the LLM. Like, that's so that I'm not potentially leaking anything to anyone, or to the whichever LLM I'm using at the moment, which changes from time to time. But in order to get that structure down, I have to give it that. I have to make sure that, and I've told it, the LLMs, multiple times, this is the structure I need you to return after you've accepted this query. this is the output. It has to have this output. If it doesn't have this output, you don't work.
Right.
And there's a little feedback loop that's outside the LLM. So when it gets the output, it doesn't see that. It's like, hey, you didn't do this right. So there's a loop going on. It slows me down. Luckily, it doesn't slow me down too much, but
Right.
it does make it so that, and I've tested this a couple times where I saw someone, I forget where I saw it, but they were talking about context injection, prompt injection, and just kind of like
As
doing
a issue?
Huh?
They were talking about it as a security issue?
Yeah, it was a security issue. And I ran my mind through some of those scenarios, and luckily nothing leaked. And actually it tells you I can't do that.
Right.
So that's actually been, fingers crossed, one of the better things as far as from a design standpoint that came out of this.
So like just both of y'all's scenarios to me, it's like it's a presentation layer that forces the user to interact. Yours more on the text level, David more on it's a camping, right? So here's the guide, right? So it's like, oh, this is interesting. So the user has to interact with that. So as a result, your interfaces, both interfaces is different, but it's really about the user perspective, like you forcing them to act.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so in my case, there is definitely an end user, right? Because that person they're signing up to go do something physical, right? In Tony's case, there's legal and financial implications behind what he is presenting, and so it has to be presented in a very certain way, right?
Yes.
So both of us are solving similar but also different things that both need guardrails around this stuff. And so the interaction with the LLM, yes, it's necessary, and it's going to become more and more necessary. How do you facilitate that, right? It is the problem, and it goes back into exactly what you just said, Clint. It is a presentation layer at that point. And I think that there are other segments where you don't necessarily need that presentation layer per se. Like one thing that's been running through my mind as we've been talking about this is shipping services, right? You could tie in all sorts of different shipping services and last mile stuff for freight shipping and all sorts of other things where there doesn't necessarily need to be that presentation layer, but you do need the data formatting, correct, right? You need that layer, but how it knows to talk to it to be able to solve that problem. So again, the structure, the UX structure of it, so that it gets to where it's solving the human problem at the end.
Right. So to Cory's point, it's about the outcomes, right? If you know what you're building for, then UI is always going to be required. But if the outcome is like, hey, I just need this thing to get done, and then just give me a thumbs up, then you're good. But I think there's one other piece though that kind of transcends across it all to me, which is what I call it the auth and auth. the authorization and the authentication. A human needs to be there regardless, even if it's just approve, even if it's just yes. What do you think of that?
Can you give me like an example?
So in the Claude example, right? People who's vibe coding or whatnot, Claude says Claude has access to all of your stuff anyway. But there's this mental thing on, hey, you got to approve these things. So that's an off, right? Like you have to do that. In the case of Tony, is so we're using his app, right? And maybe the AI is doing a lot of things, but that user still need to log in. That's the authentication. Like you definitely, and same for yours too. They still need to log in and say, I'm the user. Here's my API key. Blah 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 blah. After that, AI can do its thing. But if the outcome is in your case, David, give me a guide, give me a map. Then of course the user still needs to come back to that presentation layer and say, oh, okay, that's the thing. What do I do next? right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there has to be an authentication piece to that, and an account setup, and making sure that it's a real human behind it at the end of the day. And in my case, often there are a bunch of disclosures and consents that have to be agreed to by the end user. So at some point in time, they're going to have to get thrown off into my user interface regardless, because we're going to need to physically capture those clicks and get them to do some sort of electronic signature at some point. So.
And if the app outcome is pushing human interaction, then you need a user interface, right? To say you kind of like this app we're using right now, Google thing. Like I'm speaking to you guys, and like I need it. Without it, I'm like, what is he thinking right now?
Yeah,
You
there's another space that crosses over with myself and Tony as well, which is that
Okay.
which is payment processing, which is an area that's just starting to be kind of explored between people. How do you capture that consent for a purchase through the various different payment processors? What does that actually constitute? Can you allow a large language model to actually provide that consent for you, to actually push it through, or do you have to have somebody go and physically click a button, even if it filled out the information for them? So
Right. So that brings me to another cool question, and I know Cory, you kind of work with other people, so this may fall in your area too. So I'm building apps. We all build stuff. We're telling people how to build, right? But every time I look around, whether it's in the news or I'm observing for myself, Claude has taken the job. Like it's irrelevant now. Like, hey, I'm gonna build this. It's gonna do X, Y, and Z. But I take too long to ship, and then Claude says, "Boop, I got you," and it's taken over market. So the question is like, what like apps or processes or workflows do you think is gonna be irrelevant in the next 6 to 12 months?
I mean, I think that's like not possible to answer. I mean, because there's just too many variables. But I think what it comes down to is if basically if Claude can do something that you thought was valuable, you don't have a moat. And it's not going to matter what workflows you build for that. I mean, that's how I would advise on that, because the more important question is not focusing on the workflows. It's, is your outcome even valuable in the marketplace now? So, because people are building a lot of useless shit with AI, and because they're more concerned with the workflow and how cool all the agentic stuff is, and spending thousands and tens of thousands of small companies spending endless amounts of money on agentic, and they don't even what they're going to find out is that their mode is just not that strong. And it's not about the workflow, it's about your outcome. You have to be outcome focused. I mean, I go back to like Steve Jobs. Always what he did is he forced engineers to understand customer outcomes, and that's a very weird thing way back in the day. It's even weird now. You don't do that to engineers, but he did it. And that's how Apple got built, because you have to be completely outcome focused on the customer without the tech. And if you don't do that, you're going to you will get eaten alive so quickly in the age of AI, because knowledge is cheap now. All this expertise of engineers, doctors, lawyers, none of them are safe. No one is safe from that level of what AI can do, especially when it combines with other knowledge, and it's growing. And Claude is a great example.
Yeah.
So if you are in that position and you have no moat, forget about the workflows and all this stuff at the whatever you're building. You need to go back to the drawing board, kill all your darlings, go back and say and ask yourself the very basic questions. Do I have a moat right now?
I want to dig into the whole outcome, because in my head, this is just what I'm hearing. When I hear the outcome, yes, it's what the app or service or whatever is producing. But I'm also thinking about the target audience. All of us here we are very close to AI. Like we kind of know what's going on. We're seeing the news. But then I speak to my moms. She don't know. She doesn't. So she's still potentially a user in that outcome.
No. Yeah, I think. Hello, Egan. How are you?
Hey,
Okay.
Great. Good. So, yeah, I think there's an interesting thing back there with all of that. Like, you know, what will it replace my job thing? I think there's a lot of fear. People have fear about things that they don't understand. And I guess so. One thing that would help me frame this a little bit better is what is your background prior to doing what you're doing now, Cory?
What is my background? Meaning,
Are you an engineer, a product owner? Like what is it that you came up doing?
what did I come up doing
And professional? Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand your.
Like in resume style, like
Yeah.
stuff you were doing in the past.
I mean, I've always been a designer. I've been a consultant. I'm in the tech and the humanities. I'm in been lots of things. So what is your question about?
Okay, so you it sounds like you've been kind of more of a generalist your career. Did you ever like do any like no? Okay.
No. It sounds like you're digging, David, for something.
No, I just want to understand how to explain it. Because
how would you explain it then? Explain it.
Okay.
Give us the rundown.
Well, all right. I'm going to go from the perspective of a software engineer then. So as a software engineer, you can go and you can tell it to produce something. Just give it a general instruction to go build something, and yes, it will build it for you, and it might function at the surface, but it's going to fall apart on you in 6 to 12 months, right? It's the same problem that we've always had. It comes back to the quality of people that you have behind it, right? So yes, you do have what is the moat, and do you have a moat and all this other stuff? But there's a lot of people that think that they're going to replace these things, but just flatly they're just spending money right now, and those efforts are going to fail. And maybe that was something that you were trying to say earlier, but you know, I think that people are throwing a lot of money at things, are thinking that they're going to be able to get really good outcomes, when frankly they're digging themselves a hole. And Egan posted something just the other day that I responded to about his experience with an airline that I think falls directly into that.
Yeah, and it all comes back to people. You know, AI is just a mirror for people. You know, it's less perfect than we are, and you need experts to call it out when it says it's an expert, and if it is or it isn't. You know, like to what degree is this AI right? You know, and so yeah, you need to verify.
Yeah, and have a fail-safe in there so you can actually get to a human at the end if you really need to, right? Especially as a consumer.
Yeah,
because you're just not going to use that anymore, that service anymore, if they went and implemented this thing and it doesn't work correctly.
I'm curious, and so I don't want to make assumptions. I want to understand but better, because it sounds like you already understand it, David. I don't. Could you explain to me, Cory, the moat concept?
Well, I mean, a moat is going to be something that other firms can't copy by using technology. So that's going to be a moat. Like if you can use AI to basically copy workflows, that's not a moat. That you're not creating value in the marketplace. You need to be creating different value in the marketplace than everyone else. That's what a moat is going to be.
Like your own leverage. What were you going to say, Egan?
So yeah, a defensible position that to where people can't invade your IP, copy it, you know, or reproduce it just as easily. That it, you know, and that's why people, you know, talk about runways and you know, that you're, you know, 3 to 6 months ahead of the competition, you know, and if you can maintain that, you know, without somebody leapfrogging you somehow,
Exactly.
That's kind of what it boils down to what a moat is in terms of castle defensibility.
Yeah, it's not software anymore. It's not going to be how well you engineer your workflows. It's going to be your tacit knowledge and your firm knowledge.
They say that one of the moats is design. You know, how good your experience is. How is that? And even some business models are starting to move to output or outcome driven payments, so that, you know, it's not like, hey, I tried, pay me. It's like, no, I got you, you know, your refund, and now you pay me, you know, just like I said I would, and now you pay me for that service. And you only get it upon success or partial success or whatever, you know, neither.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For explaining that.
I think an interesting example of this would be ticketing services, right? I think like Zendesk, for instance, right? They offer software as a service for arguably a very easy to replicate process, right? I opted to not use a ticketing service. I built my own, right?
Yeah.
But that is also something that's very easy to get wrong and to ingest in the middle of your system, to where it 6 months down the road breaks absolutely everything if you don't design it right. And I think there's a lot of companies out there, especially with them offboarding a lot of their experienced technologists, that are going to go and try to build those systems and are building those systems that are going to fall on their heads here very soon.
Just the feature set depth and the maturity of that, from bouncing the software off of users and battle testing it that way, is a moat. You know, that you've got that software built up now. You've got APIs for it, and now with MCP wrapper and API, you have that software data, you know, that's set to be able to drive with AI now. So it's still, the SaaS apocalypse is only there's scale here. Play.
Sometimes your moat isn't even the software, right? It's not.
Yes, it's all the services set up around. You're right. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think we can agree on this. So tell me if I'm not getting this right. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter about if we have CLI or API. We just got to define our modes, our outcomes, and then we can pick and choose the features we want to have, because then we'll know, hey, I'm building for, I don't know, 60% AI agent. Right, and then the rest is humans, because I know what I'm building. That's my leverage. That's my edge.
Well, and making things architecturally like modular, it becomes more important now than ever. So because things are changing so fast, you know, and there's leapfrogging happening all the time, you're going to need to swap, you know, one module out for another and still keep it running smoothly.
Right.
And the thing is, like, Sora is a good example of why you can't rely on the tech at all. And talking about Disney level stuff that got disrupted, this is unprecedented. Like, this is unbelievable what just happened. And we're talking about the biggest AI firm in the world just killed one of the largest, arguably, you know, one of the best chances of going consumer first, killed it in just like that. So what do you think? This is the problem with the whole moat thing, with wrapping a tech wrapper in it. It just doesn't exist. Really. It's ultimately like a combination where, like, say you're Disney, like they were literally putting people in place at Disney with their best people for Sora, in the Sora, and then OpenAI just says, hey, well, we killed it, and they got the memo. Right? That's a big deal. And so your moat, to me, is really a combination of the human IP that you own and the technology where you have to shift very, very quickly. It's a combination of this two things that have to be in alignment, or you just don't have a moat in the AI age.
True. That's fast. I assume everyone knows the news, right? Because I just found this out last night. On a whim. I wasn't even looking for it. Everybody heard the news, right? About Sora?
I heard it.
Sora's dead.
OpenAI killed Sora.
Yeah.
Because Disney had a deal to use it, or for Sora to use their licensed characters.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yep, got it.
Wow, yeah, that's good. I think we beat this topic to our death. we totally got it, guys. I appreciate you guys being open to kind of challenge each other on this. I think that in kind of in the same realm, and Egan, you touched on this a little bit, that SaaS is probably slowly going away. Yes, we're seeing more Cleed. We're building more for the agent, yeah, and whatnot. Hey, thanks, David. Have a good one. But I think at the end of the day, what I learned here today is it's build for the outcome and build with the moat in mind. Like, what's your leverage? How you are gonna kind of take things over to the next step. You guys have any last summaries on how you see this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's always been build for infrastructure, build for, I would say community, but you're building because you need to have something very stable underlying anything that you're building. I mean, it has to have a good foundation.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, it's going to tip over real quickly, real easily. I'm not even talking from an architectural standpoint. I'm just talking from if you don't even know what your users want, how are you going to build something that they're going to use?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to your point, also, like community, like that if you build your product in the right way, where you have developer relations and whatnot, you can get people to help you paint your fence with you, and it's, you can make it a party in the kitchen, and so yeah, it's a not crowdsourcing, but a lot of open source software works that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just end on like the moat, and the combination of all the technological kind of wonder that we have, that companies now have available to them, is unprecedented, obviously. But there's a distinct awareness that can be ripped from that. There's just so much abundance, and so now it's the real question, I think, with Moat comes down to because knowledge and all these things are so abundant, who's the best question asker about what people really need and why do they need it, and and that's where I think it gets into it does get into more of the territory of like what's in our brain, because we can now connect that with the machine. And I think that's a really fascinating kind of like a fascinating scenario, that is just to me it's like endless knowledge being expanded cognitively and all that with the machine. And I think that's a really fascinating vision of AI and humans.
Well, if you kind of think like of corporations or products as living, breathing entities that are born and mature and age and die, and grow with the market, with demand and how well they solve the problem. I studied, evolution, and one of the things they talked about with species was fitness, and how fit an individual and a species are to be able to either adapt or overcome, certain problems in their environment as the environment changes, as their fellow, population changes, genetic and flows, and all that shit. And so if you kind of combine that with this, that resiliency is what there is a term that's being used more and more lately, and it goes right back to that, corporate entity, being able to adapt and move and flow and live and survive and thrive, hopefully.
It's living software. There's a movement called the I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It was just featured on NFX, the VCs that do a lot of forward thinking VC stuff, and it's called the Software with a Soul movement. And there's an article like AI's underestimated frontier, and it's really fascinating stuff because it's literally the combination of the humanities and the soul and software. And like one example is a spin out from MIT called Prior Computers bills itself as a machine psychology company. There's just a growing, these are kind of weird concepts, but it's really exploding. And I think they're taking full advantage of the cognitive relationship between human and AI, and generative AI is in particular, not machine learning AI, but
metacognitive is also another, growing, the thinking about thinking kind of cycle.
AI with a soul. Who you say was doing it? I'm looking at that.
Software with a soul.
It's called NFX. I'll put it in the chat. This is the article. NFX put this out, I think, last week, and it's just these guys. I don't know if you guys follow them, but they have called so many. They called the Gen AI thing like one of the first VCs that really understood what's going to happen with the wrapper companies, and there's only a short time to do AI wrappers before it gets commoditized. Like they were already calling that before it was a thing, and I really like the stuff that they put out.
I'll read this. Thank you for that. And Egan, you were saying something with meta
just metacognitive flows and just thinking about thinking and driving a questioning cycle in reasoning models to then help you define your workflows and
gotcha.
Accomplish goals, yada yada. There was something else that I was going to say on top of that.
Well, we are pretty close to ending time. So thank you again for joining. This is what we do every two weeks.